The sanctuary's fall. The hospital ship, Asclepius, drifted through the void like a beacon of hope against the star-scattered darkness. Its pristine white hull bore the crimson crosses that marked it as sacred, untouchable by the laws of every civilized species in the galaxy. Inside its vast medical bays, Dr. Helena Voss moved with practiced grace between the wounded, her gentle hands bringing comfort to soldiers who had seen too much war. "Another transport just docked," Nurse Jenna Walsh reported, her voice carrying the exhaustion they all felt. 57 casualties from the Proxima conflict. Helena nodded, pushing a strand of auburn hair from her face. The Asclepius served as humanity's primary medical vessel in this sector, treating wounded from a dozen different skirmishes. She had dedicated her life to healing, believing that mercy was humanity's greatest strength. "Dr. Voss to the bridge," came Captain Marcus Reed's voice over the intercom, warm and familiar. Helena felt her heart skip as it always did when he called. Their relationship had grown slowly, carefully, built on shared quiet moments between crises. She found him standing before the massive viewport, his tall frame silhouetted against the stars. "Marcus." He turned, his weathered face softening when he saw her. "Long-range sensors are picking up a fleet approaching. Unknown configuration." Helena moved beside him, close enough to feel his warmth. "Pirates? Too organized, too large." His hand found hers, their fingers intertwining. "Helena, if something happens..." "Nothing will happen," she whispered, squeezing his hand. "We're protected by the sacred covenant. No one attacks hospital ships." Outside, sleek vessels emerged from hyperspace, their hulls black as the void between stars. The alien ships moved with predatory grace, surrounding the Asclepius in a perfect hunting formation. Marcus activated the communications array, his voice steady despite the tension in his shoulders. "Unknown vessels. This is Captain Reed of the medical ship Asclepius. We are a humanitarian vessel operating under galactic protection laws. State your intentions." The response came in accented standard, cold and mocking. "I am Commander Kethvar of the Hegemony Third Fleet. Your species has grown too comfortable in our galaxy, human. It is time you learned your place." Helena felt ice form in her stomach. They wouldn't dare. "Sir," Marcus continued, "we carry only medical supplies and wounded personnel. By the sacred covenant, your human laws mean nothing to us," Kethvar snarled. "The hegemony recognizes only strength. You will serve as an example of what happens to inferior species who dare claim equality with their betters." The first energy beam lanced out without warning, striking the Asclepius amidships. The great vessel shuddered, emergency alarms screaming to life. Helena was thrown against Marcus, who wrapped his arms around her protectively. "All medical staff to emergency stations," Helena called over the intercom, her training overriding her fear. "Prepare for casualty intake." But there would be no wounded to treat this time. The second barrage tore through the medical bays where she had just been working, where Jenna and dozens of other staff members had been tending to patients. The screams that followed would haunt Helena's nightmares forever. "They're targeting the medical section specifically," Marcus said, his voice hollow with disbelief. "They're not just destroying us, they're making sure we can't help anyone." More beams struck, each one calculated to cause maximum suffering. Sections of the ship vented atmosphere, carrying with it the last breaths of people Helena had called family. The artificial gravity fluctuated, sending medical equipment floating like deadly debris. "Abandon ship," Marcus ordered, though they both knew few escape pods remained intact. Helena grabbed his arm, pulling him toward the nearest pod bay. Around them, the ship groaned as its superstructure buckled. They passed broken medical bays where she had saved so many lives, now twisted into unrecognizable wreckage. As their escape pod jettisoned, Helena watched through the tiny porthole as the Asclepius died. The ship that had been humanity's greatest achievement in medical advancement was becoming a tomb. The red crosses on its hull still glowed, mockingly bright against the growing fires within. "Why?" she whispered, tears streaming down her face as Marcus held her close. In the distance, Kethvar's flagship broadcast his victory to the hegemony, his laughter echoing across the communication channels. He had proven his point. Humanity was weak. Their mercy was a disease that had now been cauterized. But as the escape pods scattered into the darkness, carrying the few survivors away from the burning wreckage of their sanctuary, something began to change in the collective heart of humanity. The sacred covenant had been shattered, and with it, the last restraint on mankind's capacity for righteous fury. The Asclepius was gone, but its destruction would light a fire that would burn across the galaxy. Hearts ablaze. The refugee station, Haven's Rest, had never seen so many broken souls. Helena Voss sat in the medical bay, her left arm in a regeneration sleeve, watching Marcus sleep in the bed beside her. His face bore fresh scars from the escape pod's emergency crash landing, but he was alive. They were alive, which was more than could be said for the 3,000 souls who had perished aboard the Asclepius. "Helena." The voice was familiar, commanding. She turned to see her brother Thomas Kane approaching, his general's uniform crisp despite having traveled for days to reach them. His face was a mask of controlled fury. "Tom." She reached for him with her good arm, and he embraced her carefully, mindful of her injuries. "When I heard," his voice cracked. "When I saw the footage, I thought we'd lost you too." The footage. Helena closed her eyes, remembering how the attack had been broadcast across human space, Kethvar's mocking laughter accompanying every explosion. The galaxy had watched humanity's greatest mercy burn. Marcus stirred, his eyes finding Helena's immediately. "How long was I out?" 6 hours, she said softly, her hand finding his. "Tom's here." Marcus struggled to sit up, recognizing the man who had raised Helena after their parents died. "General Kane, sir." "Just Tomson." Kane pulled up a chair, his expression grim. "I need to know everything. Every detail about the attack." As Helena and Marcus recounted the assault, Kane's jaw tightened with each word. When they finished, silence stretched between them. "Admiral Cross is assembling the fleet," Kane said finally. "Every ship, every gun, every soldier. President Santos is addressing the Colonial Senate tomorrow." "What will she say?" Helena asked, though she suspected she knew. "That the Sacred Covenant is dead. That mercy, unguarded, is merely weakness waiting to be exploited." Kane leaned forward. "Helena, I know this goes against everything you believe, but no." Her voice was steady, surprising them all. "It doesn't go against what I believe. I still believe in mercy, Tom. But I learned something when I watched those children die in the medical bay." She looked at Marcus, drawing strength from his presence. "Mercy must be protected, and sometimes protection requires a terrible price." Marcus squeezed her hand. "Helena, you don't have to—" "Yes, I do." She met his eyes, seeing her own resolve reflected there. "I'm not staying on the sidelines while others fight. I'm a doctor, but I'm also human, and they made it personal when they targeted the wounded." 3 days later, President Elena Santos stood before the assembled representatives of humanity's colonies. Her words carried across every human world, every station, every ship. "The Sacred Covenant protected the wounded for 2 centuries, she began, her voice heavy with grief. "Yesterday it was broken by those who mistake our mercy for weakness. Today we answer them with the iron truth. Humanity will never again trust the galaxy to honor what should be sacred." Helena watched from the medical station where she was completing her recovery treatment. Beside her, Marcus held her hand as the president continued. "We invoke Protocol 7. Every hidden shipyard will activate. Every mothballed fleet will launch. Every citizen capable of bearing arms will have the chance to serve." Santos paused, her eyes seeming to look directly through the camera. "And to those who think they can prey upon the defenseless, learn this lesson well. We are not weak because we heal. We are not soft because we show mercy. We are dangerous precisely because we know the value of both." Admiral Victoria Cross appeared on screen next, her silver hair stark against her black uniform. "Effective immediately, all hospital ships will operate under armed escort. Medical facilities will be hardened against attack. And any force that threatens human medical personnel will face the full might of Earth's fleets." Helena felt Marcus's hand tighten in hers. "I have something to ask you," he said quietly. She turned to him, seeing something new in his expression. Fear, hope, and desperate love all mixed together. "Helena Voss," he said, dropping to one knee beside her medical chair. "I don't have a ring, I don't have fancy words, and I might not live to see next year. But I love you more than I ever thought possible, and I want whatever time we have left to be spent as your husband." Around them, the medical bay fell silent. Other patients and staff turned to watch as Helena felt tears stream down her face. "Marcus Reed," she whispered, "we're about to go to war. We might both die. Everything we've known is changing. I know. And you still want to marry me? Especially because of all that." She slipped from the chair to kneel with him, ignoring the pain in her healing arm. Then yes, you stubborn, wonderful man, yes. Their kiss was witnessed by dozens of wounded soldiers, refugee civilians, and medical staff. For a moment, love triumphed over the darkness that had engulfed their world. But even as they held each other, both knew that the gentle people they had been were gone forever. The galaxy had forced them to choose between mercy and survival, and humanity had found a third option: mercy protected by uncompromising strength. General Kane approached them as they separated, his expression softer than before. The Retribution launches in 2 weeks. Helena, Admiral Cross specifically requested you for the medical staff. The Retribution? Marcus asked. Our newest class of warship. Hospital facilities, yes, but also enough firepower to glass a planet. Kane's smile was sharp as a blade. We're done trusting others to respect our healers. Now we protect them ourselves. Helena nodded, understanding. The age of peaceful medicine was over. The age of warrior healers had begun. Outside the station, construction lights blazed as humanity's war machine stirred to life for the first time in decades. The galaxy had awakened something it wasn't prepared to face, a species that would go to any lengths to protect what it held sacred. The Asclepius was gone, but from its ashes, something fiercer was being born. The Silent Hunt. The stealth frigate Nemesis moved through space like a shadow given purpose. Captain Zara Mitchell stood on the bridge, her dark eyes fixed on the tactical display showing the hegemony supply depot ahead. 3 months had passed since the Asclepius fell, and humanity's response had been swift and merciless. Target analysis complete, Captain, reported Lieutenant Commander David Park from his station. 47 vessels in dock, minimal escort presence. They're not expecting trouble. Why would they? Helena said from her position at the medical station. They think we're still mourning our dead instead of counting theirs. Mitchell smiled grimly. Dr. Helena Voss had changed since joining their crew. She still healed, had saved a dozen crew members during their last engagement, but now she also served as their xenobiology specialist, identifying alien weak points with clinical precision. Range to target? Mitchell asked. 2,000 kilometers and closing, ma'am. Stealth field holding steady. Helena checked her displays, cross-referencing anatomical data on hegemony species with the ship's sensor readings. Captain, I'm detecting approximately 300 alien crew members across their fleet. Cathera physiology means they'll have reduced reaction time if we target their command nodes first. Recommendations, Doctor? Hit their flagship's bridge section. The neural feedback through their shared command network will cause temporary paralysis in their other commanders. Estimated window 47 seconds. Mitchell nodded. This was what they'd become. Healers who used their knowledge of life to deal death more efficiently. Mr. Park, target the flagship's command section. Full spread, quantum torpedoes. Targets locked, Captain. For the Asclepius, Mitchell said quietly. For the Asclepius, the bridge crew echoed. The Nemesis dropped its stealth field as the first torpedoes launched, brilliant streaks of destruction cutting through the void. The hegemony flagship exploded in a cascade of light and debris, its command crew dead before they could scream. Just as Helena predicted, the other ships hung motionless for nearly a minute, their commanders paralyzed by neurological shock. It was enough time for the Nemesis to destroy 6 more vessels before the aliens could organize a response. Enemy ships are powering weapons, Park reported as the depot erupted in chaos. All ships, this is actual, came Admiral Cross's voice over the comm. Execute Mercy Protocol. The space around the depot suddenly filled with human warships as they dropped from stealth, a coordinated trap months in the planning. The hegemony forces found themselves surrounded by vessels they never saw coming. Helena watched the tactical display as the enemy tried to flee. Captain, there's an escape pod launching from the depot. Single occupant, Cathera biosignature. Let it go, Mitchell decided. Survivors spread fear better than corpses. As the battle raged, Helena split her attention between coordinating medical responses and analyzing enemy movements. When Lieutenant Park took shrapnel to his chest, she was beside him instantly, her hands steady as she worked to seal the wound. I've got you, David, she whispered, medical nanites flowing from her fingertips to repair damaged tissue. But even as she saved his life, part of her mind cataloged how the injury had occurred, adding data to humanity's growing knowledge of hegemony weapons. Helena, came Marcus's voice over the secure channel. His ship, the destroyer Righteous Fury, was leading the flanking maneuver on the depot's far side. "Status report." "We're secure, my love," she replied, knowing the entire bridge could hear. She'd long since stopped caring about protocol when it came to Marcus. War had taught them that every conversation might be their last. "Minimal casualties on our end. The medical bay is handling everything." "Good, we'll be finished here in 10 minutes, then back to the rendezvous point." Helena smiled despite herself. They'd managed to steal 2 hours together at the last rendezvous, a precious interlude of normalcy in their cramped quarters aboard the Nemesis. His hands had been gentle as he traced the new scars on her arm, remnants of their escape from the Asclepius. She'd kissed each of his own scars in return, making silent promises about the future they'd build together when this war ended. "Dr. Voss," Captain Mitchell called. "I need your assessment. Are we facing desperation or strategy from the hegemony?" Helena studied the sensor readings from the battle. "Strategy, definitely. They're preserving their core fleets while we hunt their supply lines. Commander Kethavar is smarter than we initially assessed. Then we adapt." Mitchell's expression hardened. "Mr. Park, signal the fleet. Implement Ghost Protocol. We're going hunting." Over the next week, the Nemesis and her sister ships became phantoms haunting hegemony space. They struck without warning, vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. Each attack was precisely calculated, with Helena's medical knowledge allowing them to maximize psychological impact on alien crews. But the cost was growing. Helena found herself treating more wounds, holding more hands as soldiers died, writing more letters to families back home. The gentle doctor who had believed in universal mercy was learning that sometimes mercy required becoming something darker. "Do you ever wonder what we're becoming?" she asked Marcus during one of their brief reunions aboard the supply ship Covenant. They lay together in a small berth, their bodies pressed close in the narrow space. "Every day," he admitted, his arm tightening around her. "But then I remember the children's ward on the Asclepius. I remember Nurse Walsh trying to shield her patients as the hull breached. And I know we're becoming what we need to be." Helena traced patterns on his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. "I used to think violence was always wrong. Now I use my knowledge of anatomy to help our weapons target more effectively." "Does that make you a monster?" Marcus asked gently. "I don't know, maybe. But if being a monster protects future children from what happened to the Asclepius..." She looked up at him, seeing her own resolve reflected in his eyes. "Then I'll be the best monster I can be." Their kiss was fierce, desperate, full of the passion of people who knew they were dancing on the edge of eternity. When they made love, it was with the intensity of warriors who might never see another dawn. Hours later, as they prepared to return to their respective ships, Marcus caught her hand. "Helena, whatever we become, whatever this war makes us, I need you to know that loving you is the one pure thing left in my life." "And you're mine," she replied, sealing the promise with a kiss that tasted like hope and sorrow intertwined. Back aboard the Nemesis, Captain Mitchell reviewed their latest intelligence reports. "Doctor, we've located one of Kethavar's forward bases. High-value target, but heavily defended." Helena studied the data, her medical knowledge already identifying potential vulnerabilities in the base's life support systems. "I can get us inside, Captain." "But it won't be clean." "Clean went out the airlock with the Asclepius," Mitchell replied. "Prep your analysis. We hunt tomorrow." As the Nemesis slipped back into the darkness between stars, Helena reflected on how much they'd all changed. They were no longer the peaceful explorers who had once sought to heal the galaxy's wounds. They were something new, something the universe had never seen before. Angels who had learned to carry swords. The hegemony had wanted to teach humanity about strength. They were about to learn that lesson themselves, written in fire across the void. When Angels Fall. The chapel aboard the battleship Retribution was small, hastily converted from a storage bay, but it served its purpose. Helena Voss stood before the makeshift altar in her dress uniform, her hands steady despite the magnitude of what they were about to do. Beside her, Marcus Reed looked impossibly handsome in his captain's blues, his eyes never leaving her face. Admiral Cross officiated the ceremony, her voice carrying over the assembled crew who had gathered to witness something beautiful in the midst of so much darkness. "In the presence of your comrades and under the stars that have seen too much war, do you, Marcus Reed, Take Helena Voss to be your wife? I do, Marcus said, his voice strong and clear. Through whatever comes, until my last breath. And do you, Helena Voss, take Marcus Reed to be your husband? Helena looked into the eyes of the man who had held her as their world burned, who had fought beside her through the darkest months of humanity's history. I do. In peace and in war, in healing and in battle. The simple gold rings had been crafted in the ship's fabrication bay, inscribed with coordinates, the last known location of the Asclepius. As they exchanged them, Helena felt something shift inside her, a sense of completion even as the universe fell apart around them. You may kiss your bride, Admiral Cross announced, and when Marcus's lips met hers, the assembled crew erupted in cheers that echoed through the ship's corridors. The celebration was brief but fierce. Rationed wine, improvised music, and the desperate joy of people who knew that tomorrow might bring death. General Kane, Helena's brother, gave a toast that brought tears to hardened soldiers' eyes. Captain Mitchell presented them with a small hollow image of Earth's sunrise. Even the normally stoic Admiral Cross smiled as she watched the newlyweds dance to a musician's improvised melody. But the war waited for no one. 6 hours later, Helena stood in the Retribution's combat medical bay, checking her equipment as the ship approached the hegemony's fortress world of Kethmaran. Around her, the largest human fleet ever assembled prepared for the battle that would end the war, one way or another. Final approach in 30 minutes, came the announcement over the ship's intercom. All personnel to battle stations. Marcus found her there, still wearing her uniform from the ceremony. Mrs. Reed, he said with a smile that didn't quite hide his fear. Captain Reed, she replied, stepping into his arms. Ready to finish this? With you? Always. Their kiss was interrupted by the sound of General Kane's voice over the tactical channel. All ground forces, this is actual. We've identified High Overlord Vex Thul's command complex on the northern continent. Primary objective is capture, secondary is elimination. The bastard who ordered our hospital ship destroyed dies today. Helena's expression hardened. Through months of intelligence gathering, they'd learned that Vex Thul had personally approved Kethavar's attack on the Asclepius. The alien overlord had wanted to make a statement about human weakness. Today, humanity would make their own statement in return. The battle began with humanity's new doctrine, overwhelming force applied with surgical precision. Stealth ships materialized throughout the Kethmiran system, their weapons already locked on targets. The orbital defense platforms that had protected the world for centuries died in the first 60 seconds. Helena watched through the medical bay's viewports as dropships launched from the Retribution, carrying her brother and his ground forces toward the planet's surface. Each ship was filled with soldiers who had volunteered for humanity's most dangerous mission, not conquest, but justice. Multiple casualties incoming, reported her assistant, Dr. James Chen. Transport 7 took heavy fire during insertion. Helena's training took over as wounded soldiers flooded her medical bay. But even as she worked to save lives, part of her attention remained focused on the tactical displays. This wasn't just medicine anymore, it was combat medicine, practiced in the middle of humanity's greatest military operation. Helena! Marcus's voice came over her personal comm, strained with effort. We've got hegemony reinforcements jumping in system. It's going to get rough up here. Understood, she replied, her hands never pausing as she sealed a soldier's punctured lung. We're secure down here. Fight your ship, my love. The space battle that followed would be remembered for centuries. Human vessels, their crews fighting with the fury of the righteous, carved through hegemony fleets like avenging angels. But the aliens fought desperately, knowing that defeat meant the end of their empire's dominance. On the planet's surface, General Kane's forces pushed through the capital city toward Vex Thul's stronghold. The urban combat was brutal, with hegemony civilians caught in the crossfire. But humanity's rules of engagement were strict. Civilians were to be protected, even alien ones. The war was with the hegemony's military, not its people. Helena, we need you in Surgery Bay 3, Dr. Chen called out. Priority 1 casualty, severe neural trauma. Helena rushed to the table where a young lieutenant lay unconscious, his head wound exposing brain tissue. As she worked to repair the damage, her comm crackled with an incoming transmission. All units, this is General Kane. We have Vex Thul cornered in his command center. The coward is trying to negotiate. Helena's hands stilled for a moment. Through the medical bay's speakers, she could hear her brother's voice addressing the alien overlord. You wanted to teach us about strength, Vexthul. You destroyed a hospital ship full of wounded soldiers and children. Today you learn what strength actually looks like. The transmission cut to static. 10 minutes later, Kane's voice returned. High Overlord Vexthul is dead. The hegemony command structure is broken. But even victory carried a price. As the battle wound down, Helena found herself treating not just human casualties, but alien ones as well. Her medical oath compelled her to heal, regardless of species. When a wounded Cathara soldier was brought to her table, she worked to save his life with the same dedication she'd shown for her own people. Why? The alien gasped in broken standard. Why heal me? We killed your ship healers. Helena looked down at him, her hands steady as she repaired his damaged organs. Because that's what separates us from you. We don't abandon our principles even in war. The alien's eyes widened with something that might have been understanding. You are not what we thought humans were. No, Helena agreed quietly. We're something far more dangerous. We're people who will go to any lengths to protect what we hold sacred, but will never become monsters in the process. As news of the victory spread throughout human space, Helena stood beside Marcus on the observation deck, watching the stars wheel overhead. In her hand, she held the results of her morning medical scan, results she hadn't yet shared with anyone. Marcus, she said softly, taking his hand and placing it on her still flat stomach. I have something to tell you. His eyes widened as understanding dawned. Helena, are you 12 weeks, she confirmed, tears streaming down her face. I found out this morning just before the ceremony. Marcus swept her into his arms, spinning her around as laughter mixed with sobs. Around them, their new world was being born from the ashes of the old. The war was ending, but the future was just beginning. In the distance, alien ships fled the system, carrying word of humanity's victory to every corner of the galaxy. The hegemony was broken, its leadership dead or scattered, but humanity had proven something more important than their military might. They had shown that mercy and strength weren't opposites, but partners in the dance of civilized existence. The Asclepius was avenged, but more importantly, its legacy was secure. Never again would hospital ships travel undefended through the void. The New Covenant. 6 months after the fall of the hegemony, the galaxy had learned to speak in whispers when discussing humanity. The Great Council chambers on neutral Centauri Station hosted representatives from dozens of species, all gathered to witness the signing of what historians would later call the Iron Covenant. Dr. Helena Reed, she had taken Marcus's name with pride, stood at the medical viewport of the new hospital ship Phoenix, watching the diplomatic vessels arrive. Her hand rested protectively over her growing belly, where their child slept peacefully, despite the magnitude of the moment taking place outside. Nervous? Marcus asked, joining her at the observation deck. At 6 months pregnant, Helena moved more carefully now, but her mind remained as sharp as ever. No, she said, surprising herself with the truth. For the first time in months, I'm actually hopeful. Below them, the Phoenix represented humanity's new approach to medical missions. The ship was twice the size of the old Asclepius, its medical bays more advanced than anything the galaxy had ever seen. But unlike its predecessor, the Phoenix bristled with defensive weapons and was escorted by a full battle group. The age of undefended mercy was over. Dr. Reed to the communication center, came the announcement. You have an incoming transmission. Helena made her way carefully through the corridors, past medical bays where human and alien patients recovered side by side. The war had ended, but the healing would take generations. She settled into the communication chair just as Ambassador Nira Blackwood's image appeared on the screen. Helena, Blackwood said, her silver hair immaculate despite the long negotiations on Centauri Station. I wanted you to see this moment. After all, it was your ship that started this change. The ambassador stepped aside to reveal the great assembly hall where hundreds of species had gathered. At the center podium stood Admiral Cross, no longer in her military uniform, but wearing the blue robes of Earth's new diplomatic corps. The Sacred Covenant served the galaxy for 2 centuries, Cross began, her voice carrying clearly through the translation devices. It protected the wounded, the innocent, the defenseless. But it was built on trust. trust that was shattered when the hegemony chose to make war on mercy itself. Helena felt Marcus's hand find hers as the Admiral continued. Today we establish the Iron Covenant. Medical vessels will no longer travel undefended, trusting in the goodwill of others. They will be protected by force of arms, because we have learned that mercy without strength is merely an invitation to cruelty. The camera panned across the assembled delegates. Helena could see fear in many of their expressions, fear of humanity, of what they had become, of what they might do if provoked again. Any attack on medical personnel or facilities will be considered an act of war against all signatory species, Cross declared. The wounded are sacred. The healers are sacred. Those who violate this law will face the combined might of the civilized galaxy. One by one, the delegates approached to sign the document. Some did so eagerly, others with obvious reluctance. But they all signed, because the alternative was to face humanity alone, and the galaxy had seen what happened to those who chose that path. As the ceremony concluded, Helena felt their baby kick strongly, as if responding to the historic moment. She laughed softly, imagining telling her child someday about the day when the galaxy learned to protect its healers. Incoming message from General Kane, the communication officer announced. Helena's brother appeared on screen, looking older but more at peace than she'd seen him since before the war. Behind him, she could see the reconstruction efforts on former hegemony worlds, where human engineers worked alongside alien civilians to rebuild what the war had destroyed. Helena, Marcus, Kane began, his smile genuine for the first time in months. I wanted to share some news. Commander Kethvar has been found. Helena's breath caught. The alien who had personally ordered the destruction of the Asclepius had been a ghost for months, vanishing when his fleet was destroyed. He's requested asylum, Kane continued, his expression growing complex. Claims he wants to testify before the War Crimes Tribunal to make amends for what he did. Helena exchanged glances with Marcus. After everything they'd endured, the idea of facing their nemesis in a courtroom rather than on a battlefield seemed almost surreal. What did you tell him? Marcus asked. That it's not my decision to make. He destroyed your ship, killed your friends. The choice of how to respond belongs to the survivors. Kane paused. He's being held on Titan Station. If you want to see him? Helena closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the moment. For months, hatred for Kethvar had driven her through the darkest periods of the war. But now, with victory achieved and new life growing within her, that hatred felt like a burden she no longer wanted to carry. Yes, she said quietly. I'll see him. 3 days later, Helena sat across from the alien who had changed her life forever. Kethvar looked smaller than she remembered, his chitinous skin dulled by defeat and remorse. Between them, a force field hummed quietly, not because Helena feared him, but because regulations demanded it. Dr. Voss, Reed, he corrected himself, noting her wedding ring. I am glad you survived. Are you? Helena asked, her voice carefully neutral. Yes. It means my greatest mistake did not claim your life as well as your ship. Kethvar's alien features were difficult to read, but his shame seemed genuine. I believed humans were weak because you showed mercy. I thought attacking your healers would break your spirit. Instead, it broke our restraint. Yes. He was silent for a long moment. I have spent months studying your species, trying to understand how I could have been so wrong. Your mercy was never weakness, it was strength under control. When that control was removed, the galaxy learned what humanity looks like when we stop holding back, Helena finished. Kethvar's compound eyes fixed on her growing belly. You carry new life. I do. In my culture, new life is sacred above all else. The young are protected by the entire community. He paused. Perhaps that is why your hospital ship affected me so deeply, though I did not understand it at the time. We destroyed your protectors of the vulnerable. Helena felt something shift inside her. Not forgiveness, exactly, but understanding. What do you want, Kethvar? To spend my remaining years ensuring that no one ever makes my mistake again. To teach others that humanity's mercy is not weakness, but the choice of a species strong enough to show restraint. He leaned forward slightly. To help build a galaxy where your child will never see hospital ships burning. Helena studied him for a long time, seeing not the monster who had haunted her nightmares, but a broken alien seeking redemption. Finally, she spoke. The tribunal will decide your fate. But if they show mercy... She paused, her hand moving to her belly. Perhaps mercy is what separates civilization from barbarism. Perhaps it's what makes us worthy of the stars. Months later, Helena stood in the nursery aboard the Phoenix, holding her newborn daughter as Earth rose through the viewport. Baby Sarah, named for the nurse who had died protecting her patients, slept peacefully in her mother's arms, unaware that she was already famous throughout human space as the first child born after the Iron Covenant. Marcus entered quietly, his face glowing with the wonder of new fatherhood. "How are our girls?" "Perfect," Helena whispered, passing their daughter to his eager arms. Ambassador Blackwood sent word. The tribunal reached a verdict on Kethvar. And? Life imprisonment, but with the possibility of parole if he completes his rehabilitation program. Helena smiled softly. He'll spend his sentence teaching alien children about the importance of protecting healers. His first lecture is titled Why Hospital Ships Are Sacred. Marcus chuckled, looking down at their sleeping daughter. Think she'll grow up in a safer galaxy? Helena moved to the viewport, looking out at the stars that had witnessed so much change. In the distance, she could see the lights of other ships, human vessels escorting a convoy of medical transports to the frontier colonies. Never again would healers travel undefended. I think she'll grow up in a galaxy that understands the price of breaking faith with mercy, she said. One that knows humanity will go to any lengths to protect what we hold sacred. As if responding to her mother's words, baby Sarah opened her eyes, bright blue like her father's, but with a strength that seemed to promise great things for the future. The Asclepius was gone, but its legacy lived on in the Iron Covenant, in the protected healers who traveled the stars, and in the knowledge that mercy backed by strength could change the galaxy itself. Outside, the stars shone with the light of a universe learning, slowly but surely, to be worthy of those who sought to heal its wounds. The age of undefended mercy was over. The age of protected compassion had begun, and in the quiet nursery of a hospital ship, a new generation of humanity's children slept peacefully, secure in the knowledge that their guardians would never again allow the innocent to suffer for the failures of the cruel. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Some truths, once broken, demand the strongest force to restore them, and humanity had proven itself more than capable of providing that force, while never losing sight of why the truth was worth defending in the first place.